All right. Let's dig into. Let's continue the grammar book because I want to finish this up so we can move on to other things. So we can finish this program up for you. All right, let's share my screen. I know we're on complex sentences. We did that. We did that. Let me see where's my. I think we were. I think I skipped that because I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I think we talked about gerunds and gerund complements and participles, right?
Yeah, we
We
did.
talked about. Okay. Write a sentence using a gerund, and no need. No need to do that. Write 3 incorrect sentences using infinitives and shame. That's for a group, so we don't need to do that. So
Last thing I recall was the noun clauses. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we accomplished the noun clauses, right? We talked about those. So the infinitives, I think we talked about infinitives a while back.
Right. When we were just determining that to with a verb, and they can be used, to describe a noun or a verb or a situation or something like that, along those lines.
They believe the teacher to be a nice person. See, the to be is an infinitive complement. Belief type, advise type. He advised them to study. Attempt type, she attempted to kick. One type, I want him to call me. Let type, he let the student go home early. Okay. No to. There's no to. He let the student go home. But the point is to go home early, but we don't use the to here. All right, so that's infinitive complements. Again, not teaching this stuff, right? We model it, not teaching it. We try to dive into this, even if you're dealing with, people who are English for academic purposes, EAP, they still don't need to know this, because knowing all this, it stops them and it stops them from your key mission, which is to get them to write concisely, coherently, cogent, with brevity, right? Make sure that they are that the message sent is the message received. If students start thinking about infinitive clauses and gerunds and adverbials, and this is going to get in the bigger way of the mission, right? Again, as someone who's running a center and as an instructor, you need to know this stuff. But the student doesn't necessarily need to know this, right? Relative clauses. We talked about relative clauses. We talked about who, that, when, where. We talked about that last class.
Yeah.
When we talked about
we talked about that. We were focused on that. Yeah.
Just to recover, just to reinforce, that is for necessary. Necessary. We call them restrictive clauses. Which is could be restrictive, could be non-restrictive, but we said in a style guide, like APA says you should just use it as a non-restrictive clause. That kind of keeps everything, keep everybody honest, right? Or they add further incidental information. So you see here where it says, or they add further incidental information, indefinite clauses. So you can call them definite clauses, you can call them restrictive clauses, you can call them non-restrictive clauses, or you can call them indefinite clauses. All right, indefinite relative clauses. All right, not a big deal. The key is we know that if we see the two commas there, or we see the comma in front of the relative clause, we know that that clause is non-restrictive. We know it's just additional information, not necessary to the main clause. In this case, my shoes, which are red, are untied. But we can read that without the two commas. My shoes are untied. The idea that they are red is not a really big deal. The car, which is old anyways, broke down. Okay, we can just read that without the two commas. The car broke down. All right, not a big deal. I think we went over this. My sister who lives in Boston.
Yeah.
We went over.
Yeah.
Noun clauses. Noun clauses function like noun in a sentence, either as a subject, object, or complement. Oh, we already did this. We did this. Didn't we do this? I just don't know what I'm. We already did this. Reported speech. Reported speech is another example of a noun clause. They're used to report what someone says or has said. Erica said, "I wish you would tell me what you would want to do." He told me he couldn't come. The letter said she would be there at 10 o'clock. Okay. All right. These are all other examples of noun clauses, reported speech. Basically, what you said, what somebody else said. Erica said, he said, okay.
And here we're using that as a necessary clause.
Right. Erica said that. Erica said that she wanted to come to the party. Or you can just say Erica said she wanted to come to the party.
Yeah.
Now, if it was a direct quote, then we would put quotes if she actually said those words exactly. But here, she might not have said those words exactly, so we're not quoting it. All right. Activity 3.7, look at the following examples and explain what the situation is surrounding each of the cases of reported speech. Hint, when did he say it and how much cake is left? So let's look at this. He says she likes the cake a lot. He says she likes the cake a lot. He says she likes the cake a lot. When did he say it?
Yeah, that's he says she likes, but he said all the time. It's a what is
All the time. He says
it's an non-finite, isn't it? Non-finite verb says.
We call it habitual.
Habitual.
He said she likes the cake a lot. She liked the cake a lot. He said she liked the cake a lot.
So that's in the past.
Right? So he said it in the past. He says she liked the cake a lot. He says,
still the same. Yeah, habitual, like you said.
Right. But this time, does she like the cake now?
That we don't know. She liked it. That's all we know. In the past, she liked it. So she's not
Right,
having
in
it
the
now,
past.
I guess. Yeah.
Right. She doesn't like it anymore. We can assume she doesn't like it anymore. Whereas in the first one, she continues to like it.
Mhm.
But he continues to say habitually that she liked the cake a lot. He said she likes the cake a lot. He said she likes the cake a lot.
Well, that's all he
So-
remembers. It's in the past.
And then, so he was in the past saying that she likes the cake a lot.
Right. At that time.
At that time, does that mean she still likes the cake?
I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know. We just don't know. Yeah, we don't have enough information. He says she will like the cake a lot. What about this one?
So habitual, but we don't know, right? It's that will. She will like. So it's an assumption.
An assumption, yeah. So does she like the cake? No.
We don't know.
No. The answer is no, because she hasn't even had the cake yet.
Right.
He said, well, she will like the cake a lot. Right. So does she like the cake? The answer is no. Because she hasn't even had the cake.
Right. Yeah, I can't hear you. Yeah, I see you. Are you muted? Your video is fine. It's clear. Maybe it's that microphone. No, I can't hear you. But the video is fine. The video is clear.
Check.
All right, now you're back. Yeah. Okay, now you're off.
I'm off now.
Okay, now you're on.
Check. All right. So which one of the sentence 3.8? Which of the sentences is an average time?
Time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Time. The first one, when I'm jogging.
When I'm jogging, and then in the mornings, right?
In the mornings.
I'll shut. I'll shut if I need you. I'll shout. What's wrong with me? I'll shout. I'll shout if I need you.
That's purpose.
If.
So condition.
Jack's coming home to run the business.
To run. That's the purpose. Yeah, purpose.
He usually eats lunch where they have vegetarian food.
Place.
There you go. We're not gonna do 3.9. Not waste our time. All right. Let's do one or two of these. Basically, what you want to do here is see which one is the main clause and which is the dependent clause.
All right. Okay. So just to recap, so the dependent clause is the one that can't exist without the main clause, basically. All right.
Yep. I didn't
All
know.
right. Mm. So I didn't know is the main clause. What I should do is the dependent clause.
Yeah, that's that's the stuff. I'm not wasting your time. All right, let's go down to the nitty gritty. This was the one that's a little frustrating.
Mhm.
And that's unit 4, tense and time. So tense and time is a little frustrating. So let's look at it. Tense refers to the form of the word, not the meaning. In other words, tense includes the prefixes or suffixes added to the word to change the time reference. Verbs that have more than one word are not included since they carry meaning beyond the time reference. How many tenses are there in English? Why? Present. The code text. The other words in the sentence may or may not match with the tense form indicated by the verb. The present tense is particularly troublesome. Consider the following. So let's go back to 4.1 for a second. How many tenses are there in English? So how many tenses are there in English language?
Well, you can only exist in the past, the present, or the future. So I would
Can
say
you,
that's
can
those
you
three.
exist,
You hope to exist in the future.
hope to exist? So the reality is, how many tenses are there?
So that's past, present, and future tense.
So you say past, present, future. So you said the 3?
I'm saying there's 3. Yeah.
I would argue that there's only 2 tenses.
And they are the
Uh,
past and present.
Past and present. What's happening right now and what has happened in the past. That's what I would argue. Everything else are the way we perceive the past and future tense. Everything else is the way we perceive the past and future tense. Now, I guess your 4th grade English teacher would tell you that there's 12 tenses.
Really? 12? There are that many of them.
Yep. The simple present, the present continuous, the present perfect, the present perfect continuous, the simple past tense, the past continuous, the past perfect, and the past perfect continuous. Then you have let's see, 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Yep. Then you have the future continuous, the future perfect tense, and then the future perfect continuous. So you got this simple present, present continuous, present perfect tense, present past, present perfect continuous, the simple past, past continuous, past perfect tense, past perfect continuous, the future tense, the future perfect tense, and the future perfect continuous. How you like those? All right, because but the reality is it's only, in my opinion, it's only 2. Some people say it's only 1.
Mhm.
Some people say there's only 1 tense, and that's the past tense.
And so how
Some
did
people
they,
say,
but that's
because
pretty, you know, go on.
people will say that everything else is aspect. Some people would say that everything else is aspect. Some people say there's 16 tenses. So you have some people that argue that there's 16 verb tenses. And then some people say there's 24. Right.
That's
And again, one of the things I would never do is try to attempt to teach tenses to students. This should be all modeled, because when you don't, as a native speaker, if I don't think about it, I'm going to say it correctly. The moment I start to think about it, that's when I will mess it up. As a native speaker, it goes back to Chomsky. Remember Chomsky's universal grammar?
Yeah.
We just, it's pre-installed in us. So we just say it because we just say it because it's just already pre-installed. But if we think about it, we're like, hold on, what is it? Is it has had been? And then you get all flustered. But when you just normally having a conversation, you would use all types of aspect and tenses that one would argue are not really even tenses. So let's look at the context. In other words, in the sentence, may or may not match with the intense form indicated by the verb. Right. So you remember what context was, right?
it's the whole sentence, basically the words in the sentence.
And the words, so the words that are in the sentence, and then what's co-location? You remember?
Collocation. No, I remember the word. I remember that. Context is how we use the word. Collocation is
So context is, let's get this right. Context is the situation. The situation. Situation we all understand. This context is the situation.
Situation. So collocation would be where the word is placed, or
The words are replaced.
Okay.
Right. So where the words are placed will allow the definitions of the words, and the context are the words used. And they all work together. Context, cotext, and collocation. They all work together to form communication. So all the words surrounding, and then the collocation is where we put those words next to each other, right? To help communicate the context, or help explain the context. All right. 4.2, look at these sentences. What is the verb? What is the tense of the verb? What is the time reference? Sally leaves at 7 p.m. next Sunday. Sally leaves at 7 p.m. next Sunday.
It's a continuous verb.
Okay. But what else is going on there?
It's like in the future.
Wow.
That's
Isn't
the whole
that crazy?
sentence. Yeah.
All right. So if a student saw that, they will say that that's present, because we would teach a student Sally leaves, that's the present, right? Present tense. Present continuous. That's what we would tell the student. However, that's not what's really going on here, is it? So this demonstrates context. Sally leaves at 7 p.m. next Sunday. So the tense of the verb form is present, but the time reference is future. How about those apples?
I can see how, yeah, it can get confusing.
I mean, this what makes my point about not teaching tenses, and just modeling the language. So when we talk about what do you do for exercise, I run. Those modeling drills are so important. They're extremely important. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
I hear you. Yeah. They're extremely important, those modeling exercises, because we're giving learners the situation, as long as we give them the context and we run into those drills so they can properly hear it, the language and how it's used in real, instead of trying to go over these tenses. That's just going to confuse the living mess out of them. It's too confusing. What about this one? I don't get it. The Pope dies and the schools close. I don't get it. The Pope dies and the schools close. What's going on there?
Well, that speaks to her current lack of understanding, which is continuous, which is present. No, when we use the word get, yeah, it's not got. So get, that's present. And then the Pope dies. So as if the act of dying is continuous or something. I mean, she could have said the Pope died. Said the Pope dies and the schools closed, and the schools were closed, for example. So that would be describing something, but no, they're all present. So again, it's just the way that the language is used. It could have been done differently, right? And it would have, the tenses would make more sense, but this is how people speak. Like you said, we were saying that it's a lot of English or a lot of languages, just the colloquial or the slang or the what people know how they use the language. So
that's not even slang. You would hear that in Parliament. Yeah. You would hear that. The president will speak that way. I don't get it. The Pope dies and schools close. I don't get it. COVID happens, and now we have and now we're locked down. I don't get it. COVID comes, and now we're locked down. Right? Same sentence, right? Same structure. So we speak. This is the way we speak. This is the way native speakers speak anyway, and even non-natives will speak that way once they, got a hold of the language. So how do you teach this? How do you teach this? You see, you don't. You give your students enough opportunities to hear the language. And this is what Kaufman, the polyglot, he says, you gotta get them read. You gotta get people to read. They will get the context. They'll get the context through co-text and co-location. Oh, excuse me. They will get meaning through co-text and co-location because they are already going in with a certain context, right? So going back to my man Crashing, when Crashing talks about comprehensible inputs, he's talking what? Understandable, right? And what's the other thing Crashing says? Understandable and compelling. Understandable and compelling. So in your censor, it can't be boring to the learners. They must understand the context, and that context and that activity, that context and that exchange has to be compelling. It cannot be boring. So later we're going to talk about learner profiling down the road here, and hopefully the learner profiling makes sense after doing the boot camp. That's why I like doing the boot camp right at this point, because it makes sense on why this other stuff that we're going to go over, why it matters. All right. So we got to go back to students' wants, needs, and expectations. If you're concerned with students' wants, needs, and expectations, right, then you're no longer concerned with this grammar thing. All right.
Okay,
Now you're
sorry, this is okay, go ahead.
Yeah, now you are not so much concerned with grammar, because you're more concerned with students acquiring the language and meeting their goals and figuring out what appropriate materials that you can use that will be understandable and compelling to your learners. And it may be an issue of having to differentiate and have different things, right? So again, the whole part of this activity is to reinforce the idea that at the end of the day, this doesn't matter. We're not putting our students, our learners, through a grammar boot camp, even if it's English for academic purposes. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't point out grammatical points, because we should. And we should do it via reading opportunities that we give students, or even listening opportunities that we give students. But having a full-fledged grammar lesson that's 50 minutes long, that probably is not going to be compelling, understandable or compelling for the learner. All right. What about Wiley studies every day until 4 p.m.? Wiley studies every day until 4 p.m. What's going on here?
We have a continuous present verb, studies, and we have a description of that activity, which is ongoing into the future, and from the past all the way into the future.
Right. So the time reference, as you just said, the time reference of past, always future, right? So so that's what we want students to really grasp, right? Learners, people learning the language. We want them to grasp this idea that Wiley always studies, and that experience of him studying didn't just start today. It started in the past, and it's gonna go into the future. All right. Past. Past tense has an obvious clue, but look for things that might not quite fit. What is the tense and time reference of the following sentences? How do you know? They talked yesterday.
Yeah, so talked is in the past, and yesterday is the time reference.
So, but also, how do we know?
Excuse me?
Also, we also know because there's what? structurally
Structurally, there's the ed.
is the ed, right?
They're called suffixes, right? The
Yeah.
suffix. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, that's the signal that we put at the end of the show pass for regular verbs. Anyway, I'm finished. What about I'm finished?
That's it.
What is that? Is that
Finito.
past?
That's in the past.
Really?
I'm finished.
That's past?
Yep.
But I thought you got the to be verb I am. Isn't that present?
Ah, the am part. Yeah. But thanks to the contraction, we don't really see that anymore.
Right. This is why I tell my students I don't want to see contractions in academic writing. I tell them no, they can't use them. But I
That's
am
true.
finished.
There's guidelines. A lot of guidelines say that. You can't use a contraction.
Because it can throw meaning off. I am finished is actually present, isn't it? Right? You're giving the students a test. I'm finished. Right?
Yeah, but he just finished about 5 seconds ago, so he's done, or she's done.
Yeah, but we're living in it now, and that's kind of a present thing. And then you walk and say, "Well, no, you're not finished yet."
Well, there are those who would argue and say that we are always living in the past.
And that's why some would argue and say there's only one tense. What about
No,
this?
but wait, go back to that. Wait a sec. This to me it doesn't make sense. I am finished, right? Well, if it was okay. So let's look at the word itself. Okay, let's just look at the word finished. So if it was a present participle, right? Can we say finish, or I will finish, for example, or yeah. And then if you put in the past, it's finished, and am is just a I don't know. It's like one of those words that's just like giving more structure, or maybe indication or something.
Not a placeholder. I am right this moment. I'm finished. So at this moment, it's like think of a divorce. Just think of a divorce, right? A woman goes to somebody goes, two people go, I'm finished with you.
At that moment.
Is that right? But finished, the reference is that I'm no longer want to be in a relationship with you. However, the understanding is that I'm still in a relationship with you. Right? Right? So when you say it from that vein, I'm finished, right? Or even when a student, if you're given a quiz or a test, even when you say I'm finished, right? When the student says I'm finished, the student really doesn't know if he's finished yet. Because it's almost a question, isn't it? Because you may say, no, you're not finished. I got this essay for you to write. So when they ask the question, it's almost like a statement of permission. Can I leave? Right? Can I leave the class, or can I go and do something else? I'm finished. So if you really think about that question, I'm finished. Well, it also depends on the context again. Most of the time when someone says I'm finished, that doesn't mean that they're finished. And they already know that may not mean that they're finished, right? So it's that I am suggests that this is still a ongoing situation, but the finished is the desire. See, that's the aspect, right? That's the aspect. It's the desire. I'm finished with you. It's the desire to want to leave, but we're still going. I'm finished from this job. I'm finished.
Right? I get you. As opposed to I finished. 2 minutes ago.
I finished. Now that's something totally different. That's
Right.
something totally different.
Am sort of
I-
like it's sort of like a it indicates the present. Am at this moment.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. So it could have been I finished 5 minutes ago. That's it. So then that's in the
So,
past. Yeah.
so the reality is the am is really the main verb here, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
because without am, it's more definite. I finished.
Yes.
Okay, this is definite. I am finished. Okay, maybe there's still some some prerequisite or something else needed, right? What about this one? We had a good time until the rain started. We had a good time until the rain started.
We had. So had is always on its own. It sounds, it's past. Right? We had. But why didn't you say we had a good time until the rain started? Why we had a good time until the rain started?
Think about that. As a native speaker, I know I do that all the time, and it's correct in English. Because there's two events going on.
The rain and the good time.
We had, so before the rain started, we were having a good time. That's one event.
Mhm.
All right. And that event stopped in the past. And then this other event came, right? So we had, meaning we were together, we was having a good time, and then that all stopped. Now, all this stuff happened in the past.
Yes.
So you had a past event that stopped in the past, and then something else in the past occurred, the rain. So we had a good time. So when we say we had, we're emphasizing, instead of just saying we had a good time, right? You're emphasizing the breakpoints of different events that had happened and stopped and started in the past, to emphasize the point that, this is a bummer. Man, we had a good time, right? Versus we had a good time, right? That extra had emphasizes, right, that there's a break in things that had happened in the past.
Okay.
He'd started cooking by the time we got there. So that reads, he had started cooking by the time we got there.
So this started, so it's in the past.
Mhm. So he had started cooking, right? So a past it by the time we got there. We got there, past tense. So again, it's these different events occurring in the past. He started cooking. We weren't there yet, and he had already started cooking before we got there. So it's to indicate, all right? It's to indicate and emphasize these different events that stopped and started, or started and stopped in the past. Okay. Future. The future is clearly, the future is fairly clear, but lots of shades of meaning, not to be unexpected, since the future by definition is unknown and subject to speculation. Explore below. Look at these sentences. What is the time reference? What is the difference? He's going to go Tuesday. What's going on here? He's going to go Tuesday.
So they're telling us about an event, about a future event that's occurring on Tuesday.
So it's an intention, right?
Yeah, that's the intention.
And it could be intention based on an order, like if the judge told him to come, like he has to come, right? So it could be a free will. It could be, it might be, again, he's demand. It might not be of his free will, but it's his intention to go on Tuesday. Again, you have this present verb. He is.
Go. Yes.
He is going to go. So yeah, a lot going on. He is going to go. Compliment to go Tuesday. So you got a present with an infinitive and future, which all states an intention. All right.
Absolutely.
So this is where co-text and co-location again is important. He is going Tuesday.
So yeah, again, we have is going Tuesday. So
what's the
Well,
difference
it's still-
between what's the difference between the two statements?
well, one of them seems to be almost like an order or something. There seems to be more, I don't know, what do you call this? Like you said, so the first one expressed intention, right? As if there was some, he's going to go Tuesday. He's going Tuesday. So the second one is sort of like he's going Tuesday. I don't know. I feel like it's more, it's intent, but it's also, like a persistence. Or
Yeah, to me, two is like something on the calendar, right? Yeah, like your secretary. Well, he's going Tuesday because it's on the calendar, right? It's on the calendar. I'm reading it on his calendar. He's going on Tuesday. Versus one is like you just said, is like somebody saying, the judge is saying he's going to go Tuesday, right? The judge is saying, no, I don't care. He is going to go Tuesday, right? So it's an intention. It's a demand. It's either it's somebody's telling him he's being forced, or somebody's advocating for him. So the lawyer is saying, no, he's going to go Tuesday. You see the difference? Oh, the judge, oh, your honor, he's a judge. He'll be there Tuesday. Don't worry about it. I can tell you, I can assure you, right? He has every intention of it. Versus the judge going, he's going to go Tuesday. All right. And if I don't see him in there, this is going to be a big problem for him, right? So, but both still is intention. May not be his intention, as we can see with the judge, right? So somebody's either advocating for him, or somebody's even putting a demand on him, right? Depending on the context of the situation. What about number three?
I mean, commonly people will use both of them. I mean, I can see some people say, who are comfortable with saying to go, and some people will say he's going Tuesday. And I mean, I don't know, but I guess, sure, if you know how to, if you have good language and if you can pick up on the context well enough, then you would make a change, you'd switch between these two.
So to me, for me, he's going to go Tuesday sounds like one or two things. Somebody's advocating for him, right? His lawyer, his mama, his wife, his best friend, right? Or there's some type of demand, like from somebody from authority, right? He's going to pay me my money on Tuesday, or we're going to have a problem. You right? He's going to pay. He's going to pay me my money on, right? So again, we need more context. But versus he is going Tuesday is more kind of off. It's kind of more like not as stressful. It's kind of more relaxed, more offhand. He's going Tuesday. because it says it on the calendar. All right, or that's what he told me, right? It's not as much anxiety there. One, there's a lot more passion and anxiety, and there's a lot more going on. Versus 3, he'll go Tuesday, or he will go Tuesday.
He will go
What do you think?
Tuesday.
What do you think about 3?
He will go Tuesday. So the difference between is and will. He will go Tuesday. Well, I feel like there's a decision here, or maybe that was made. He
Could be a
will go
decision.
Tuesday. He will go
The difference, the difference
He
between,
will go Tuesday.
to me, the difference between 1 and 3
Still, the
is
decision hasn't
3.
been made, maybe.
Yeah, well, to me, the difference between 1 and 3 is that 3 is not as compassionate, not as convicted. 1 seems to be much more convicted. He will go Tuesday. It's more casual. 3 seems to be more casual. Right? He'll go Tuesday. He's going to go Tuesday. Right? 3
Like there's a choice here, right?
Well, not even that there's a choice. It's just it's not as
because I feel like in that one the
that
decision was made. You know, like let's say the question was, when are you coming? Are you coming on Monday or Tuesday? And then in this one, he'll go Tuesday. But in the first one, he's going Tuesday. Like this one was made by somebody, that decision, but this one is sort of like I don't know. I just feel this one was like there was a choice there. Or there was like an alternate or more relaxed.
This seems
He'll
way
go
more
Tuesday.
relaxed. 3 is way more relaxed than 1. All right, 2 is just like it's just a fact. That's what's planned. Whereas 1 is very convicted and intentional. 3 is also intentional, but it's not as strong as 1. Not as strong as 1. And all this stuff matters, right? Because if you're reading this and other things attached to it, it all matters, right?
Right.
And this is the things that we pick on. These are the little nuances, and then we go, because then we go with our friends. Now, what did he mean by he's going to go to? What did he mean by he's going to go on Tuesday? Like, did you get that same impression? Yeah. You see, we pick up on these nuances in the language, and you do the same thing in Arabic and any other languages. Man, should I be nervous? Because he's like, did you hear the way he said that? The way he worded that? He's going to go. Oh man, I think he's serious about that. And these are the nuances of language. The nuance of language, right? Boy, he goes Tuesday.
That's like continuous, yeah. Like every Tuesday he goes.
He goes Tuesday. Every Tuesday, he goes Tuesday. Is it continuous?
I feel so. Where does he go swimming? He goes Tuesday.
He goes Tuesday, which is it's not continuous, is it? That's not continuous. Because it doesn't say he goes every Tuesday. Well, he goes on Tuesdays. It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that, but do you get the feeling?
No, I don't get that feeling. I get the feeling that this is a one-off. He goes Tuesday. When do you go to see the doctor? I'll go Monday.
When does Michael go to the doctor? He goes Tuesday. Interesting. There's no word here. There's no word when you look at it that implies that it's future. But we know it's future.
Again,
Right.
according
There's
to the
no
context, and yeah.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of a situation where that would not be future. That's 100% future only, even though there's no word there that tells us that by looking it says it's future. However, the co-text and the co-location of the words tells us that's future.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
about
I see.
5?
Because as soon as I
What
said,
about-
I was like on Tuesday.
What about 5? He shall go.
Yeah.
He shall go.
You showed.
He shall go Tuesday. He shall go Tuesday.
So shall is like Your Majesty shall go Tuesday, right? It's like it
Right,
lets
it's
a bit
very
later, right? It's
Yeah, it's very pretentious. He shall go Tuesday, right? Yeah, so it's almost this is like a order, somebody of authority or royalty, right? He shall go Tuesday. I'm giving him permission to go Tuesday. He shall go, right? What about 6? He might go Tuesday.
unknown. There's a choice here. Or
He might.
just unsurety.
Yeah, not certain. Possibility.
Uncertain.
It may not be his choice. It might be somebody else's choice, right? But either way is not certain. It's a possibility. Because of what word gives it makes it a possibility?
Might.
Like when we call that word a what? What is that called?
It's well, I would say I don't know. I don't want to guess.
Modal. It's called a modal.
A motto?
MODAL, a modal. So any word that's possible, not certain, we call them a modal. Might, would, could, should, right? These are all modals. I might go to the mall. I might go. You should go. I would go, right? All right. These are modals are what we use when somebody asks us to do something we don't really want to do it. Yeah, I might go. Yeah, I might go with you. I might go with you guys. Everybody knows you're not going.
Courtesy.
Yeah. Yeah, I might go. Yeah, just call me on Wednesday night. You're not going. You know daggone well you're not going. Yeah, I might go with y'all guys. I might go. I should go. I should go with y'all. I might go. I would go with y'all. I could go with y'all, right? Probably not going. When people use modals, that's probably means they're not going, right? It's funny because you have a group of friends, right? And he says, "Well, is Ray going?" He said he might go. Man, he said he might go. Let's just leave. He ain't going. Let's just leave him. And then you come there. Where you guys at? Oh, you said you might go. We thought you're not going. Right? Modals. They're all called modals. Okay. Strictly speaking, there are only 2 tenses in English: the present and past. If we use the basic inflected form of the verb as the criteria, these are the only 2 cases where the base form changes inflection to change the time reference. The so-called tense chart For teaching purposes, there are various verb phrase combinations that form what are loosely called tense. If you include these combinations, how many tenses are there? Don't forget active and passive forms. Some use terminologies, all right? And again, if you want to confuse the mess out of students, teach them different, all these simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. If you want to confuse the living daylights out of them. All right, you ready to get confused?
Wait, before you do get me confused. So today we said we're gonna have the session. We're gonna do it a bit longer because we're not gonna have we didn't have a session yesterday. And okay, do you mind if I take just a 5-minute break? Maybe just get a cup
Sure.
of coffee or something. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. This will be a good point. This will be a good point to take a break.
Okay then. All right. Okay, just 5 minutes.
All right. All right, you ready?
Yeah, all right.
All right. Can we let's try the present I watch. So you got I watch.
Mhm.
What's the progressive?
Let's give me a second. Okay. Uh, so the simple is I watch, and the progressive is uh, wait a sec.
In motion right now. What are you doing?
I watch. I am.
No,
I'm
what?
sorry. I am. I am watching.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay. So what does perfect mean?
Perfect is a situation that happened in the past and stopped in the past.
Okay. Situation that happened in the past and stopped in the past. Well, that sounds like I was watching. That happened in the past and it stopped in the past. But here
No,
it says
no.
it's a past progressive.
So keep it present. We're not asking for past yet.
Okay, so I am watching. I have been watching.
No, that's not. That's the perfect progressive that you just said. I have been watching. It's the perfect progressive.
Well, I don't know. It stumped me.
I have watched.
I have watched.
I have watched.
But that sounds so past.
Yeah, but it's different than I watched. It's different
I
than the
have
past.
watched. I
It's
have
different than
watched.
I have watched. All right. How long have you been a doctor? No. Do you watch football?
Yeah.
Soccer? How
Yeah,
long
no.
have you watched? How long have you watched soccer?
I've been watching soccer since I was a kid.
Come on now. No. How
But
long?
that's how I would answer it. I mean, to be honest, that's why that was the tense that came to me right away, right?
I would say I have watched baseball since I was 7. I've watched baseball since I was 7.
Why do you need to have a perfect imperfect progressive? If you were to say the same thing, I've been watching baseball since I was 7. What difference would it make? To my understanding.
There is a difference. One is one shows motion at the moment in the past. I mean, it shows motion from excuse me. Let me say this right. You asked me what was the perfect. I said, I told you the wrong thing. It's something that happened in the past and continues into the future.
Okay.
Right. I gave you the wrong definition. My apologies. So it's something that happens in the past and continues to happen into the future. Okay. So I have watched that little girl since she was 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have watched you since you came to this university.
Mhm.
That's different than saying, I have been watching you since you came to this university. They're slightly different in meaning. One would suggest that I've been casually watching you, right? Taking more of a kind of a passive stance to it. Whereas a perfect progressive suggests that I have formally and intentionally been watching you. Right? It goes back to your it goes back to, okay, perfect progressive is not as consistent as the perfect.
Give me the definition of perfect progressive, because you said perfect is something that happened in the past and continues into the future, right? Okay. Now, when we add that progressive word to it, what do we mean by that?
So the progressive meaning the ing, meaning there's motion. I like to say there's motion to it. So I have been mowing this lawn since 7 a.m. That's different than I have mowed the lawn. I have mowed the lawn. I have mowed the lawn for 7 years. Versus I have been mowing the lawn for 7 years. One is more infrequent, whereas one suggests more frequency. Because the reality is, you say, how long have you been watching football? And you said, I've been watching football since I was a kid. Well, the reality is you haven't been watching. I mean, you've been watching on and off, right?
Right.
Whereas the perfect suggests more consistency. That makes sense?
Okay, I got you.
I have watched you since you have come to the university, and I'm proud of the person you have become. That's a more consistent statement versus I have been watching you. Right? That suggests more infrequent. Right? So then, so then somebody can be questioning you on that, right? What do you mean you've been watching? All 24 hours a day? No, right? But if you changed it to I have watched her since she was a little girl. I have watched him since he was a little boy. Right? Versus, so I have been watching is so to use the perfect progressive properly, you are suggesting that I have been watching this program for the last 3 hours, and I still don't understand what's going on. See the difference? Versus I have watched this program for 3 weeks straight, and I still don't understand what's going on.
I get you.
Get it?
I get you. Yeah.
Now people do use, so you could argue that the perfect progressive is used incorrectly. Right? Because when you really when you are using the perfect progressive, you're saying that you are consistently doing something. And most of the people are not consistently doing it. They mean to use the perfect. So they say, I've been smoking for the last 20 years. Versus they probably should say, I've smoked for the last 20 years.
Mhm.
Because the correct way to use the perfect progressive would be, I have been watching this movie for the last 2 hours, and I still don't understand what's going on. That would be more grammatically correct. But people, people use the perfect progressive all the time. I have been smoking for the last 23 years. Now sometimes people they do it intentionally to show that the intensity of that action. I have been smoking. I have been chain smoking, right? Because they want to emphasize, because I have smoked for the last 20 years. That's not as dramatic as I have been smoking.
State of being, yeah.
Right.
But actually, it's wrong.
Right.
Right.
Or again, we're talking about what you're really trying to communicate to the listener or the reader. If you're really trying to communicate this idea of being, like you just said, the state of being, then maybe you are right. Right. But in the strict in the strict form, you go back to the progressive, I'm watching. People do this with TV shows. What are you watching on Netflix now? Well, I'm watching Game of Thrones. All right, now strictly we would say, are you watching it right this moment? Right? Because that's what we would understand it stand to be. I'm watching it right this moment. But no, there's many times people go, I'm watching Game of Thrones, meaning that's the current thing they're watching on TV or on Netflix or Hulu or whatever.
Right.
Instead of saying I watched I watched Game of Thrones, which would be more grammatically correct, right? Because continuous habitual tense. I watched Game of Thrones. But when they say I am watching Game of Thrones, what they really mean is this is the current thing that my current go-to. This is my current thing that that I'm interested in. So from that perspective, it's not wrong. And that and it sends two different messages. So ultimately use the tense that sends the message that you intend. Because the progressive can be can send a stronger message rather, right? Can send a stronger message. I'm watching Game of Thrones. Versus I watch Game of Thrones, which seems to be more sterile. I watch Game of Thrones. I'm watching Game of Thrones, right? Or it could be right at this moment I'm watching Game of Thrones. Okay? And again, that's when the situation, comes into play, and what makes more sense, right? Based on the context.
But if you were to call, let's say I called you up and you told me, asked you, so what are you up to? And you said, I've watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that finished. It's over.
Yeah, so if I say I watched Game of Thrones, that would imply I just got finished watching it and now I'm talking to you.
Right.
All right.
So why is
I
it
would
still
in that question, I wouldn't say I watched Game of Thrones. I would say I'm watching Game of Thrones, or I just got finished watching Game of what? I just watched, Game of Thrones. I'm probably gonna throw the just in to imply that I just got finished doing it because you asked me what am I doing now. Or if I'm actually watching Game of Thrones, I'm watching Game of Thrones. I just put it on pause to talk to you. Or I watched Game of Thrones early on today. So there's more to the sentence, right?
Or if I asked
know.
you, what if I asked you a question then? If I said, have you ever seen Game of Thrones? And you said, I've watched it.
Yeah, I watched it.
Now I see how it can be in the past and in the present. Right.
I watched it. I watched it. Well, if I say I watched it, meaning I watched it in the past, and also it would imply that I'm probably not really into it. But if I say I watch Game of Thrones, that would imply that I watched it in the past,
Right.
and I'm into it, and I probably will watch it in the future. It's more of a habitual, right? So if I say I watched it, do you watch Game of Thrones? I watched it. It probably implies that, yeah, it was okay. It's, not a super fan. But if I want to show you that I really enjoy it, I'm going to say, I'll watch it. Yeah, I'll watch it. Even though I might not have seen the episode for the last 2 months. Right? I'm gonna say I'll watch it. Like, for instance, my favorite show is The Wire. Right? It's a show about my hometown. I haven't seen The Wire in the last 3 years. But if somebody said to me, do you watch The Wire? I'm going to say, yeah, I watch The Wire. Even though I haven't seen an episode in literally 5 years. Right? Because I know that that's something that I would watch. So, and I'm a fan of the show. Right? Versus saying, I have watched it. That would imply something totally different. So all of this, ultimately, as you can see, these tenses are not about actually when things happen per se. They also express your feeling about that thing. So that's why the argument could be that there's only 1 tense or 2 tense, right? Things that actually happen or things that's happening now. So we already did the perfect progressive. You said what?
I have been watching.
All right, what about past tense?
I watched.
And then progressive, I was watching.
I was watching.
And then perfect would be?
Something.
The present perfect was I have watched.
Right.
So the past perfect would be what?
I had watched.
I had watched. And then the perfect progressive would be what?
The
present perfect progressive was I have been watching.
Have been watching.
The past perfect progressive is?
Well, that wouldn't make sense to just change the have and have, like, I had been watched. That doesn't make sense.
I had been watching. I had been watching.
I had been watching. Right.
Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, you say it, you just don't realize that you're probably saying it when you have a conversation.
Right.
Future.
I will watch.
Yes. Progressive.
I will watch, and then progressive. I will watch. I don't know.
Future is future now.
Right.
It's future.
So I will watch. Maybe it's the same.
Oh, future progressive, ing.
Okay.
The first 2 words is what? I.
All right. But the second one, yeah, it can't be will, because you can't. I will watch.
No, it's definitely will. No, it's definitely will.
will.
I will.
Does it have to be ing? How's that gonna
Yes.
work?
It has to be ing.
I will be watching.
I will be watching. You say it all the time. I will be watching. Yeah, I will be watching, man. All right. And then the perfect is I will have watched.
I will have watched.
Mhm.
And then that's the perfect progressive, right? I'm sorry, that's
No,
the perfect.
it's perfect.
I will have watched. I will. Uh,
Look at the rest of your.
no.
No, you got
Yeah.
it. Look at the rest of your perfect progressives.
I will have been watching.
There you go. I will have been watching. I will have been watching. I told you this is. I told you this is interesting. So
I
let's
mean,
go
if it
to.
was, it would be a lot easier if you had context to go with that. Then it would things would make a lot more sense.
And again, it goes to the point we don't teach this stuff because the context is not here. I would never give a student this. I would never give the student this chart. It would just deflate them. If you gave a native speaker PhD this chart, they couldn't fill it out. I bet you they wouldn't be able to fill it out. Unless they're just a grammar nerd. Right? Unless you're just a grammar nerd, they wouldn't be able to fill it out. But we all use it all the time.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, now we're going to the passive.
Mhm. Okay, now just quickly, remind me again the difference between the active and the passive.
So passive, the active voice is when when you have the subject is doing the action. Right? I play football. The subject is doing the action. In the passive voice, the subject, it seems when you listen, it seems like the subject is being done by the action.
The
Right.
subject is being done by the action.
Like for instance, people go, so you got Murray ate the cake. Okay. Murray ate the cake. That's passive voice. Excuse me, that's active voice. That's active voice. I'm sorry, active
Okay,
voice.
that's
Murray ate
active.
the cake. Right? Because
All right.
Murray ate the cake. Murray is subject and she ate the cake. The cake was eaten by Murray.
Okay.
Okay. Now, or passive voice can be the actor is implied.
Is implied.
So look here. I am watched. Who is I am what is that person watching themselves?
No. Somebody's watching.
Right. Somebody's watching. So in the sentence, the actor is not present. So we call that the passive voice. Now, the question that some students ask is why number one, in academic writing, we never use, well, that's not true. We try to avoid the passive voice as much as possible. However, scientists and journalists use the passive voice a lot, especially when the actor may be unknown.
Right, because there's a lot of unknowns in science. Makes sense.
Right. So scientists and journalists use the passive voice a lot. So the passive voice is not wrong, but what we like to say is we like to speak in the active voice as much as we possibly can. Especially when the subject is known, unless of course we're trying to intentionally confuse the reader. So you might see the passive voice a lot in creative writing, like a crime novel, something like, mystery, murder mystery, something like this. Right. But in the academic writing, with the exception of scientific work and journalism, you're going to see, you may see but even those guys should use the active voice whenever possible, but you're more likely to see the or read the passive voice from scientists and journalists. However, as an educator, I can still use the passive voice because if it's necessary, but it's frowned upon if it's not necessary. So all in all, the passive voice is not wrong. It's just not preferred in most situations, unless of course you're a scientist or journalist. And even then they should use the active voice whenever possible. So in this case, we can, we're looking at the context, and I'll call you and I say, I am watched, right? That means I feel like I'm being watched. Somebody's watching me. I don't know what that thing is, right? So I'm using the passive voice. So give me the progressive.
Okay, so I am watched. I am progressive. I am watched. I am being watched.
I'm being watched right this moment. I'm being watched. I'm being watched, man. Perfect. Perfect present. Remember, the perfect is a situation that happened in the past and continues through the future.
Look, man, someone's been watching me for ages. Just say it like that. All right, well, I'm worried about bringing have in.
No, don't worry. Go ahead, bring it in.
I have been watched.
There you go. That's it right there. There you go. That's it. I have been watched. Just said it.
Okay. If that's the perfect, then how's the perfect progressive?
You tell me.
I have been. Okay, we can't say that.
Yes, you can. Go ahead. Try it. I have
No,
been.
Doesn't make sense.
What?
I have
Say it.
No, I can't say I have been watching. That doesn't make sense. Because the verb here has to speak about somebody else. I have been watched. I have been.
You need ing now.
Right. That's. I am being watched.
All right. Okay. I have been watched. Now put it all together.
If I put I have been watching, that doesn't make
No.
sense.
No. You had it close. I have. What is the perfect? Give me the
being
perfect.
Watched. Being watched.
Okay. What is the perfect? Tell me the perfect.
The perfect is I have been watched.
Okay. Now put it all together with being.
I am being watched. No, I'm being watched is the progressive. Sorry.
No, being. Use being. Put it all together. Perfect is I have been watched. Right?
All right.
Now though being in there. Being.
I have being watched.
No. What is the perfect again?
I am being watched.
No.
Sorry, I have been watched.
Okay, now though being in that.
So anyway, we're not going to teach grammar, right? So we're not going to teach grammar. So we don't have to worry about that one.
I have been being watched.
Oh wow, I have been being watched. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. I just can't see myself use that sentence. I've been being watched. Are you being watched? I have been being watched. That's just
But that's the perfect progressive. And believe it or not, you probably would say that unknowingly in a real contextual situation. All right.
it just sounds
Past.
very, very confusing. It's like adding two beings. It's like that one earlier that had. I don't
Had.
know. I just don't. I can see myself saying I have had, right? But I can't see myself saying I had had, you know? And yeah, I can. I
So
can only remember myself using I have had, but never I had had. So I have
which let's
been being.
I had been being watched. Which
So what
makes
happened to
sense.
you? I've been being watched. You know?
Which makes it's grammatically it makes sense. I have been being watched. That means somebody's watching me in the past and they continue to watch me at this moment. I have been being watched. First,
There's a lot of things in grammar that even I remember as I went through grammar class, there were a lot of things that technically with the rules, they make sense and all of that, and they can be very well explained, but I just don't see it being used, like just people, I have never heard a sentence like that.
so again, it's one of those nuanced things that you probably would say and not even realize you said because you're in the moment. Because normally when you say something like this, it's very contextual, it's very nuanced, and you're just speaking in a real life situation.
Yeah, perhaps, or at least maybe I read it or something, but I just
Well, I mean, think about it like this. What situation would this be written in an academic? You're probably not using the perfect progressive in any academic situation. This is normally a very nuanced thing. Maybe you're in an interview, you know, you know, and it works. But you're right. Are we using the perfect progressive a lot in the language? No, because most of the time we're using the simple and the progressive. Most of the time in the past in our speech. All right, let's go past simple.
okay. I was watched.
There you go. And then the
And
progressive is
I was being watched.
so the perfect would be past. This is past
Past.
now.
Okay. Mhm.
The present is I have. So the past would be
I had
I had.
I had been watched.
There you go. So the perfect progressive would be
Uh, I had been being watched.
there you go. I had been being watched. Future,
I will. Uh, I will future it. I will be watched.
there you go.
I will
Progressive,
be watched, and I will be watched.
So, what was the progressive for past?
Progressive past was I was being watched.
All right, so give me the future progressive.
I will be watched. No, that was the first one. Sorry, that was the simple.
I would
That's
be-
watched.
So so it's progressive is ing, right? So give me
Right.
ing.
But if I did, I will be watching. That's taking me back to the active.
No.
So I will. It's I will. Pretty sure
I will
be, or
I will be.
have been watched. No, I
No.
will be.
I will be, and then give me ing.
It can be. I will be. No, I won't be that. I will be having watched.
No.
I will be.
Future. Remember, the future hasn't happened, right?
Right.
So what word would show us the future here? And the state of the future.
Not in this one, Stone.
No, you got it. You got it. Think about it. What word would show the state of the future? I will be.
State of the future.
Somebody else is doing it now. Somebody else is doing it.
Right, but we can't. Okay, if somebody else is doing it, so this person will be watching me. So this person will be watching me. So I will
But-
be. I don't see how to make it progressive, but I will be.
I will be being.
I will be
watched.
being watched. Ah, okay. That's again that be being. I will be being watched.
I will be being watched. I will be being watched. That being implies that somebody else is doing it.
Yes, yes. Somebody will be watching me. Yeah, I will be being watched. Again, not a very comfortable phrase. I will be being watched.
Perfect. The perfect is done for you.
Perfect. Yes, I will have been watched.
Okay. So the perfect progressive would be
I will. No, I will have been. No, again. It's in the
no,
past.
you could go. No, you're right. You're right. I will have been. Go ahead.
I will have been. I will have been being watched.
There you go. I will have been being watched.
Yeah, academic writing, you sort of like, when you go through your notes or when you go over, the 7,000th time, you try to avoid having these tongue
Yeah,
twisters and these, don't put two words that look alike.
in academic writing, we would never do this. But the reality is, again, will we ever reach this without learners? No. Now, will we place a dialogue or a script or a movie or a situation in front of them where these tenses may be used? Yeah. Why not? Why not? And would we point it out? Personally, I wouldn't point it out. I would wait until the student says, teacher, what do you mean by I would have been being watched? He said, no, I'm so not you. I'm teacher. In the story, the robber says to the reporter, I would have been being watched. Huh? And then that's when you would go in. Or maybe you want to dive into that territory, but I would use the context of something bigger and point it out instead of making it a lesson. It would not be a lesson, right? I wouldn't make. So I might say, okay, in on page 56 of the play,
Right.
Romeo says to his father, I would have been being watched. What does that mean? And see if the students can come up with it. I wouldn't get into this is perfect progressive or perfect progress. I wouldn't get into all that. I would make sure that the learner knows the time reference here and understand the situation, right? Understand, can follow the events or the sequence of events based on that I will have been being watched. But I wouldn't get into that's perfect progressive. For what? Now, and again, if you're going to be teaching linguistics, which I'm pretty sure you're not, then let the linguistics people get into all that. People who are interested in linguistics. We're not teaching linguistics. We're teaching based for understanding. So I wouldn't get into perfect, progressive, I wouldn't get into it. All right. Last thing we're going to do. I love this. This is going to confuse the heck out of you, and this will be the last thing we'll do because I know your brain is probably like, what is going on? So we got a couple things, events happen, time reference, okay? So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, okay? I want you to put these in order from 1 to 7. There's 7 things right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7. So put them in order from 1 to 7. All right. I'll give you 5 minutes. Take your time.
All right. So do you have it?
Well, there's lots of ways to look at it, but yeah, I think I have some of it. We'll see how it
Okay.
goes.
All right, what's number one?
We lived in Nagoya, Japan for 6 years.
Okay, good. Number two.
We lived in Tokyo for a while before we moved to Nagoya.
Okay, good. Number three.
We were going to move to Las Vegas in 1988, but my job fell through.
Perfect. Number four.
We're going to live in Banhi.
No,
Okay.
before you go there.
So we
Before
live
you
in
go to-
Bangkok now.
Yes, we live in Bangkok now. Now go to,
We're going to live in Banhi. And then
Yeah.
by the time we move to Banhi, we'll have spent 3 years in Bangkok.
yep. And then seven would be after we live in Pohnpei for a few years, we move back to Bangkok.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Most people don't get that. You're a smart guy.
Thanks.
You're
man.
right. Yeah, and you're right. There are other possibilities. But that's just the primary one that we go with. Okay. I think I worked you hard enough today. Because yeah, because 5-7 is a monster. That's just I want to stay away from that. I think I made my point clear about the whole grammar thing.
Yeah.
So we only have. We pretty much finished A5. We got 6 and 7 to go. I think we're finished. Yeah, so we only got 2 more units to go.
All right. 6 is the one, the mobiles, paraphrasals, and voice.
Yep,
All right. So that will be the next lesson.
yep. We're gonna go right into 6.
All right.
All right. I think I don't want to beat the time reference any longer. All right. So when's the next time we're meeting?
Okay, so this week, let's see, I'll be out of town. So I get back on Saturday. So let's say Sunday, next Sunday.
Okay. Next Sunday.
That would be the 6th of November.
Sounds good. All right. All right. Safe travels.
All right.
We'll see
Thanks a
you
lot.
on the 6th.
All right.
All right.
Okay. You too. Take care of yourself.
All right.
I wanted to ask
Same.
you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just like off the record.
Yep. Hold on a second. Let me stop. Stop this first.